Do you do your job for the glory of God? Just a question I want to ask all of you. Your job, your career, whatever you do, is it for the glory of God, or is it for your own self-satisfaction, your own comfort, your own pleasure? Even if it's for your family, which is a way of making it also for yourself, is it about you, or is it about God? Each one of you, myself included, this is what it means to have a vocation, something we're called by God to do. Each one of you has a talent, something unique about you that, God willing, you're able to put into action by what you do. Whether you're a first responder or a doctor, a nurse, an educator, a student right now, a priest, whatever it is, you have that ability, a God-given innate inclination to do that particular thing. You're a successful businessman or businesswoman because you have that aptitude that God gave you. You didn't choose that when you were in your mother's womb. God gifted it to you. Or if you're an artist or an athlete. And do we take that gift that God has given us and give it back to him? So you notice in this parable, first, the master gives 5 talents to one, 2 talents to another, 1 to another. And Matthew notes he gave the talents each according to his ability. To each according to his ability. It's as if the master knew the guy who was going to get 5 talents had the ability to take that 5 and make 5 more. The one who was getting 2 had the ability to just do it with 2, and the one with 1 just with 1. Now, the reason why the guy with 1 gets thrown out at the end is he doesn't fulfill his own ability, right? It's only 1. It's less than the 5, but he doesn't act as if he had 1. He acts as if he got 0. He buries it in the ground like he had nothing to begin with. But it's as if the master knew, and he gives them according to their own ability. Okay, so we all have different gifts and talents given by God specifically for a purpose, to give it back to God, to glorify God. And you notice also in the parable, so when they multiply their talents, the guy who has 5 and makes 5 more, gives those back to God. The master receives those talents in return. And then what do we see? The master says, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in small matters. I will give you great responsibilities." Now, Matthew doesn't tell us what those great responsibilities are, but it's something different than the actual talents. The guy who multiplies the 5 talents doesn't keep those talents, but he gets something else in return. In Luke's gospel, with this same parable, what we find out the master gives them after they trade with gold coins are cities. The master entrusts the servants with cities, okay, but not the gold coins. So when we do our work in business or real estate or educating or in healthcare, we give that to God. And that is an act of glorifying God and building up the church. So what happens when we open our souls up to God. And when we wake up in the morning and we do a morning offering and say, "Lord, everything I do this day is for you and for your glory," our souls are now conduits or channels for God's grace. He comes into our hearts and makes us holy. And then through our hearts, goes into the hearts of the people with whom we interact. If you're a homemaker, it's your children, the people at your office, the people who you see on the streets, the people who you interact with on the phone or on Zoom or whatever. God is gracing them. God is impacting them through you. Because again, your job is not about yourself anymore, it's for God. And what God is doing is He's saving their souls. He's touching their souls. You might not notice it, they might not notice it, but it's happening on a spiritual level. That's what our faith tells us. We believe this. Now, if you think your job is so mundane that God, it can't possibly glorify God or build up the church, look to the first reading. The author of the book of Proverbs says, he lauds this woman, and he says, she obtains wool and flax and works with loving hands. She puts her hands to the distaff, her fingers ply the spindle. Okay, obtaining wool and flax, plying the spindle, right? That's pretty mundane. But she's glorifying God because of her spirit. She's given it over to the Lord. She's a worthy wife. And so too can we, whether we're bagging groceries at Jewel or we're the President of the United States, right? We can glorify God to build up the church as well. So when you offer your life, your career, and also let me point out, it might not be glamorous too. Taking care of your elderly parent with Alzheimer's is also work that you do that glorifies God and helps build up the church. Again, your faith tells you, I can't see it, but I have to believe that God is impacting both me and my difficult, whatever, spouse or parent. To build up the church as well, what is the church about? We're not about programs and buildings. We're about the salvation of souls. And this is how you help glorify God and build up the church, by offering your job to God and not making it about yourself. Because, like I said, you're impacting other people's souls. I don't want to get like political here, so don't read anything political into this. But we hear these days, we got to save lives. We got to save lives. I don't care about saving lives. I care about saving souls. What good is it to live to age 95 and go to hell then, right, for the rest of eternity? We want to save souls. And you can save souls in a very simple, practical way by offering your job, whatever you do, for the glory of God. Doing it for Him. Giving your talent back to God. Right, the word for talent in Greek in this gospel is dunamis. Dunamis, which is also used not just for talent, but for power. Dunamis is power. So when God is giving these servants talents, or the master in the parable, He's also giving them power. And so too, when God gives you a talent, whether it's, again, bagging groceries at Jewel or being a city planner or whatever, it's a power that He's giving you, a power to build up the church and to save souls. You are other Christs to the people with whom you interact. So if you're not doing it now, that's okay. Start Monday morning. Amen.